Hi, it's Mark from Top Local. We're here with Bernie Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver. 18-time winners of Best Auto Repair in Vancouver as voted by their customers. How you doing, Bernie?
I'm doing very well.
So Ford Econoline vans, this is actually a request from one of our viewers. They wanted to know how reliable are they. So how reliable are Ford Econolines?
Well, I'd say, to put it simply, they're fairly reliable.
And what do they look like?
Oh, that's a good question. We see lots of them around. It's interesting. This vehicle's been around actually since 1960. So let's just do a share here. So this is a modern version of the van. They made them up to 2014. This is a 2009 model. But up to 2014, they pretty much look the same as this. But if we go back a little bit, this is what they started out as. A lot smaller of a vehicle, and interestingly, the engine was actually inside the van. So if you open the side door here, you can see my old mouse pointer. If we open the side door, you could actually find the engine sitting in there. We call it the doghouse because it looks like a doghouse. And you lift the doghouse up and you could service the engine. Usually they were a 6-cylinder, something pretty small, but you know, it got you around. It's not a huge vehicle. But as I say, they evolved back into this with the engine located in the front. And the earlier, sort of partway through the generations, they actually had a very short hood. So you know, made it like most of it was still inside the front. But these newer ones, there's a lot more access from under the hood.
So what are some of the common problems that you see with these vehicles?
Well, let's talk about the 2000 and newer vans, because anything older than that we really don't see much of anymore. So I mean, some of the common problems with the vehicles, well, they pretty much all have V8 gasoline engines. That's the most common configuration. Spark plugs, of course, have been a problem on Ford trucks with the Triton engines, with spark plugs popping out of the engine, or on some where they break off. So spark plugs are an issue, and they're difficult to access because it's a van. So that's one of the issues. The other thing we find, a lot of them, there's coolant leaks. I'm talking about the more major issues. Coolant leaks will develop. A lot of times the intake manifold is made of plastic, and there'd be a failure of the coolant crossover passage or thermostat housing, and that requires replacing the intake manifold. So that's a pretty major piece of work. You know, other than that, they're generally pretty reliable engine-wise.
So without all that space to work, I guess working on the engines on these is really difficult.
Well, it is. It is a lot more difficult than a truck, because you can access some of the engine from the front, and then some of it has to be accessed from the inside. So you have to remove a cover, which takes extra work, and then you're usually hanging in one of the two doors to access the vehicle. So yeah, it's definitely more work. So it makes a van more expensive to service than a pickup truck generally. Things like a transmission or anything underneath the vehicle are all the same or simpler, but the engine is more complex time-wise.
And some of these vans had diesel engines, including the famous Ford 6-liter. How are those?
Yeah, so yeah, they are available. They've had 7.3-liter diesels and the 6 liters. I mean, that's a large engine crammed into a very small space, so it makes those complex diesels even more work. Personally, I wouldn't recommend buying one unless you absolutely need the beefiness of a diesel. The good thing about them, we find, like with the 6 liters, we've never done a head gasket job on one, although we've done many trucks. And it's not to say that there aren't other shops that have done them, because they do fail, but I think the failure rate on van 6-liter diesels is lower than it is on trucks, simply because you can't really, most people don't ever load them up like they do in a pickup truck, so they don't really get the wear and tear and the strain that you do in a pickup truck. Although the pickup truck one shouldn't have the problems it does, but the diesels are a lot more work, you know, to do, inside the van.
And like always with diesels, change your oil very regularly.
Exactly. Change the oil, service the fuel filters, with anything, and that's same with the gasoline motor too. Same thing.
So what other issues do you see with these vans?
Well, a couple of, you know, we do see the odd electrical problem, and there's nothing really specific. They're just a few electrical issues that occur. Sometimes with the door locks and windows and things like that, which are, again, not entirely uncommon among other vehicles. But there are a few electrical issues here and there. Also, I found with the brakes. I mean, the brakes are pretty well built on these vans, at least in the the 2000 and newer. So they're pretty tough brakes, but it seems like the calipers on Fords for some reason need to be replaced. I wouldn't say every brake job, but frequently they need to be replaced because the caliper pistons, the seal they use on them the dust seal seems to break open for some odd reason. I don't know if it's the heat of the brakes, but they seem to need to be replaced quite often. So you can almost count, if you have a Ford van, Econoline van, you may well be replacing the calipers every time you do the brakes. A lot of them have disc brakes front and rear, which is great. I mean, you get better braking with disc brakes on the back than drums. So those are a couple other things.
Sure. So overall, what's your verdict on the Ford Econoline van?
Well, they're a good, tough-built truck, and they're, as I said, I've talked about a couple issues. I mean, a diesel I'd avoid unless you absolutely have to have one. The gasoline engines, you've got your spark plugs, intake manifold possibly, and brake calipers. Other than that, they're like, really reliable. There's, little else goes wrong, and they're well built.
So there you go. If you have a Ford Econoline that you're looking for service in Vancouver, the guys to call are Pawlik Automotive. You can reach them at 604-327-7112 to book ahead. They're busy. You got to call and book ahead, or check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com, or our YouTube channel, Pawlik Automotive Repair. Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks, Mark.